The U.S. has made a trade breakthrough with South Korea. President Trump made the announcement on Wednesday.
Trump said the two countries had reached a deal and had pretty much finalized it. His comments came at a dinner hosted by South Korean President Lee Jae-myung after a lavish welcome and gift-giving as Trump was awarded the country's highest decoration.
Like I wear it right now.
The Allies unveiled a deal in late July under which Seoul would avoid the worst of US tariffs on its imports. That was by agreeing to pump $350 billion of new investments into the US in return for lower tariff rates. But talks over the structure of those investments had been deadlocked. President Lee's aides said he and Trump agreed Seoul can split its promised investment fund into $200 billion in cash, and those can be paid in installments of $20 billion. The other $150 billion is to be spent on investments in shipbuilding, which South Korea has promised to help Trump restore. Trump's comments sent the South Korean won up against the dollar. Investors hope an agreement will remove uncertainty for the Asian country's trade-reliant economy. Without a deal, South Korean makers of cars and steel must pay US tariffs of 25% rather than the 15% agreed in July.
Sentiment of anti-Chinese Communist Party running high on Wednesday in South Korea. Protesters gathered to oppose Chinese regime leader Xi Jinping's visit there for the APEC summit. Xi also plans to meet with President Trump on Thursday.
The protesters held signs, wore costumes, and waved flags reading "Lies and Deception Out" to voice their resistance to the Chinese regime. Meanwhile, China today said it absolutely will not rule out using force over Taiwan. Beijing is striking a much tougher tone than a series of articles in state media this week that pledged benign rule if the island comes over to Beijing. Here's the organizer of the rally against the CCP.
South Korea seems to be working well now as a democratic country, but there are so many contradictions in a government that lacks legitimacy. It is never the will of the people that this government is acting pro-China. The people are still trying to promote friendship with Western world free countries. They want it. They don't want communism.
A protester said the current Korean government should be blamed for the high tariff imposed on the country, as it has not shown belief and trust in the United States. Traders and investors are on both sides of the Pacific hope the sit-down will ease months of trade tensions.
Asian powers are quickly positioning, while the U.S. and China are getting ready to hammer down a slew of key issues. First up, President Trump reassures the world that his stance on Taiwan won't be challenged by Chinese regime leader Xi Jinping. Here's the president talking to the press on Tuesday. Watch.
How much do you expect Xi to try to push you on Taiwan?
I don't know that we'll even speak about Taiwan. I'm not sure. I mean, he may want to ask about it. There's not that much to ask about it. You know, Taiwan is Taiwan.
Trump's remarks came as concerns rose over whether he would sell off Taiwan to get a trade deal with China. Last Friday, Taiwan said it was not worried, citing close cooperation with the U.S. But Beijing refused to back down. Hours after Trump's comments, a Chinese spokesperson said that Beijing will never rule out using force to take Taiwan. The Chinese Communist regime sees Taiwan as its own territory despite never having ruled it. Moving to rare earths, Trump inked a flurry of deals these days with Japan, Malaysia, Thailand, Vietnam, and Cambodia, all aimed to help the U.S. diversify rare earth supply chains and curb China's dominance.
These agreements will be incredible victories for all of us. When America thrives, our partners thrive, and our alliances thrive with all of the countries. The Indo-Pacific thrives, and that's good for all of us, and the entire world becomes safer and wealthy and greater than ever before.
That's Trump speaking at APEC CEO's lunch on Wednesday. This came a day before his meeting with Xi. How is China feeling while observing all these developments during Trump's Asia trip? NTD's Steve Lance talked to Dennis Walder, former National Security Council Director for China.
I think it's quite embarrassing to the Chinese that the president signed an agreement with the Cambodians and the Thai over their border dispute. Where was China? And similarly, in the Middle East peace process, where was China? President Trump is proving to be a very effective international negotiator, and the Chinese are not looking that good.
Some analysts say China won't just sit around and watch the U.S. expand its influence in Southeast Asia. On Wednesday, just 3 days after Malaysia agreed to ease the ban on rare earth exports to the U.S., the country rolled back its decision, saying the ban will remain in place. It's worth noting Malaysia relies on Chinese technology to refine rare earths. Riley Walters, senior fellow at the Hudson Institute, shed light on Southeast Asia's balancing act amid U.S.-China arm wrestling.
I think for a lot of these Southeast Asian nations, it's constant hedging between the United States and China. Trump is, of course, having much higher demands of these countries and these economies, and so they are in a way hedging. It doesn't necessarily mean that they're getting closer with the United States. I think they are still very skeptical of this administration and what his Indo-Pacific strategy could look like. It's also not as if they are getting closer with China either, I would say.
Besides trade deals, Trump received nominations for the Nobel Peace Prize twice within a week from Cambodia and Japan. Asian leaders praised Trump for his efforts in mediating long-rooted regional conflicts, including the one between Thailand and Cambodia and the one between India and Pakistan. President Trump touches down in South Korea, the latest stop on his Asia tour. Part of the focus, what do these negotiations revise the South Korea-U.S. nuclear cooperation agreement, which would supply nuclear-powered submarines? But why the focus on this technology, and what are the tensions from China and North Korea in the region? To unpack the regional tensions, we spoke with Rick Fisher, senior fellow on Asian military affairs at the International Assessment and Strategy Center, for more. South Korea's leader was kind of trying to double down on the U.S. allowing South Korea to receive fuel for nuclear-powered submarines. There's a lot of focus on the waters right now and also land missiles. On that note, actually, there's been rising concern, if you will, of China's stockpile, or if they have one, of missiles, especially more long-range ones. Talk to us about what you're watching for in terms of China's missile capabilities.
Well, in their September 3 military parade, the Chinese revealed many new missile systems that are accelerating their ability to threaten the United States forces in Asia and the forces of our allies like South Korea, Japan, and our close partner, Taiwan. The United States is trying very hard to ramp up its own missile production. This is going slow, but in the next 2 years, we will be producing more missiles that can deter China at the theater level. Now, the Pentagon, in its annual reports on China's military, estimates that China has over 3,000 theater-range ballistic and cruise missiles. The United States also has many missiles in Asia, but not nearly that number. And China's missiles, many of them, perhaps hundreds, maybe 1,000 or more, could be armed with nuclear warheads. The United States does not have any land-based tactical nuclear warheads in Asia. We have some on our strategic nuclear submarines, but we don't even have tactical nuclear bombs in our bases in Asia, like Guam or elsewhere. This is a huge asymmetry, and could very well come into play if there is war. Which is why allies like South Korea and, more quietly, Japan are interested in nuclear-powered submarines. They want submarines that can dwell at sea for lengthy periods, and that they can be armed with at least cruise missiles and medium-range ballistic missiles to provide some level of deterrent against China, and in South Korea's case, against North Korea as well.
Now, I've heard President Trump talking about the Golden Dome. Do you see something like that countering this threat from China?
It will very much be part of our ability to deter China, yes. President Trump wants an initial Golden Dome capability created before he leaves office. He will get something, but it will have to grow. And Golden Dome is a long overdue requirement for the United States. The old doctrines and ideas of mutual assured destruction that we can threaten China, we can threaten Russia with total nuclear destruction. These do not deter China, Russia, and North Korea anymore. The American nuclear arsenal is too small. President Trump is reluctant to build up the American nuclear arsenal. He instead wants to redirect the nuclear competition towards strategic defense with his Golden Dome initiative. That's very laudable. It is highly preferable that the United States be racing in terms of defensive strategic systems rather than offensive strategic systems. But China and Russia also have to follow suit. Yes, indeed, they're interested in their own missile defense systems, but they also cooperate. And they'll be cooperating in terms of missile offense, nuclear missile offense, and missile defense, which means that any American national missile defense has to be accompanied by a much larger American nuclear offensive capability, both at the strategic level and the theater level.
Definitely a lot at stake here for sure. Rick Fisher, as always, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Tiffany.
That's all for today's China in Focus. I'm Tiffany Meyer. If you have any feedback on the show or have something you'd like to see us cover, send us an email at chinainfocus@ntd.com. We'd love to hear from you. For on-the-clock original news coverage, visit us at ntd.com or download our NTD app. Thanks for watching. See you tomorrow.